Go for it. Yeah.
Okay.
So tell me about your district.
So our district here in Florida, District 8, is all of Brevard County. And with the redistricting, we used to have Indian River County, which is right below us. But they took Indian River County away from us and
And
gave
what
us
city for everybody? Like, what's the major cities? Or which?
so for Brevard, people will know that because it's the Space Coast. So we have Cocoa Beach, Cape Canaveral, things like that. And then Indian River County is Vero Beach, if anybody knows that area. But what they did with the redistricting that just took place is that they took away Indian River County and gave us part of Orlando. So now UCF is in our district, which is the largest college in the state.
Wow.
So that's pretty exciting. They're trying to dilute the progressive votes of Orlando into deeply red areas, but they're handing a bunch of progressive voters to areas that had strongholds before, making it weaker. So we're happy about that in general, although the gerrymandering is never a good idea. I wish it didn't happen, but hopefully it'll work out in our favor over here. So all the numbers I have for my district are pre-redistricting. So before the redistricting, our area was 47% Republican,
Mm-hmm.
27 some odd percent third party, and 25% um, Democrat. So we actually have more third parties and independents than we do Democrats in the area. Yeah. And then we're heavily veteran in our area and a lot of older people because people retired here.
That's good. That's good. How many signatures do you need to get on the ballot?
So we needed 2,600
Uh huh.
and the deadline passed and we did not make it, unfortunately. Um, so that was a bit of a blow, but fortunately in Florida we also have the option to pay by filing fee, just to pay the fee. And then we're
Yeah,
also
$7,000, right?
10,000, ten
Ten
thousand
thousand.
440.
That's right. We interviewed another candidate who I think is going to be doing that.
Yeah, if they're registered NPA, then they only have to pay 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
But since I'm actually registered as independent, then I'm the same fee as in the Democrats and Republicans.
Oh my
So
gosh.
now we've switched gears to fundraising full time for the next month. It's due on the 12th of June,
Uh-huh.
and we're essentially starting from scratch because we
Yeah.
really thought we were going to get the signatures and we just missed it. So
Oh, that's awful. How
yeah,
many did you turn in?
on about half. So
About 13, 1500.
yeah, and we had a bunch that were kicked back, and
No worries.
yeah, it was a tougher go than we had anticipated.
Yes, getting
So,
signatures is
learning.
quite the thing. And
Mhm.
no one's going to just sit there. We all got to work. We all got families. It's like,
Mhm.
putting in a 6 hour shift or 4 hour shift, it's just tough with volunteers and even your friends too. It's just like, yeah, all
Mhm.
right, like help me. But then it's like, you probably found out that you're going to have to do this heavy lifting.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, all my volunteers are people who work full time essentially.
Yeah,
So it's a lot of I'm only available on Sunday, or I'm only available
right.
Saturday. And we went to a lot of events. We did a ton of things. We were at rallies. We really went everywhere. My volunteers were really awesome, but we didn't quite make what we thought we were going to make. So
That's good. And you're
so
pushing forward to get on the ballot still this time with paying the fee.
yeah, I'm trying my hardest. I'll make the final determination around the first if we have gotten close enough.
Enough fundraising.
Yeah, and if we haven't gotten anywhere close by around the first, then I'll probably um, switch my focus to a 2028 run instead, so that people can still donate. I can still campaign just less actively, and just get my name out there for the next 2 years essentially, because I will be running for the next October.
Good, good. That's good that yeah, you're lining it up for 2028.
Mm-hmm.
So all your information, your little bit of infrastructure that you're starting, you can build on something. Gosh, when I
Absolutely.
think of starting another campaign after doing it one time, it's like wow, your starting point is so much farther ahead. So just going through the motions, doing everything start to finish, like you're gonna put your starting line like so much farther ahead next time.
Yeah, and as a grassroots campaign, we don't have any like staff or anything.
Right.
It's just sort of me and my volunteers, and I don't have any overhead with having an office. I'm just here in my dining room.
That's right.
And then I have a background in marketing, so I was able to create all my own marketing materials. I designed my own website. So a lot of the
Nice.
other candidates' experience, I actually have avoided. So
No,
uh,
that's great. I taught myself how to make a website. I hadn't even been on social media. Taught
mm,
myself, took some tutorials, taught myself how to build a website, did
yeah.
social media for the first time, and yeah, so
Did
no,
you
that's
do
great.
Squarespace, Michael?
I uh I did. I
Okay.
did. Yeah, I
Also,
used
and I'm sorry, I think we're having, you went out for a minute, but I think I'm having an issue on my end. Can you see me like clearly?
Yep.
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 Mhm.
Yep. I went back
Um,
out and came back in because I there was no audio when so you
yeah,
went
that
out,
keeps
Kelly,
yeah,
but
that
I'm
keeps
good now. I can hear everybody.
okay. I don't know what is going on my end, but I just see, I'm just going to leave it as it is because I see this like weird overlay over just my camera. So I don't know what that's about. I tried to
That's,
go.
you can see and hear everybody. Just from
Okay, I probably just won't move it around too much here. And then if Steve comes in late, that's okay. We'll just bring him in. But, to your point, Phil, our other co host that is here sometimes, he has run, what did he say? It's like 6 or 8 times.
Hmm.
He's a libertarian in Wisconsin. And he is always saying, we're building things from election cycle to election cycle. It's not like anybody that comes in as a third party or independent expecting to win the first time around is, it's just not realistic. You're doing all this on the ground and people in your community get to know you, and you got to be in it for the long haul. But we are hearing like at least candidates do know now that like you're going to have your signatures challenged. So they're no longer surprised by, oh, like I got the 2,500 or whatever it is, but they threw out half of them. So the candidates are they're talking to each other and I think just learning, or it's not their first rodeo, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I recently read a study that something like 45% of Americans are now considering themselves independent or without party. So
Yes.
I think the independent movement has never been as active as it is now. And so I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. It's 56% amongst Gen Z.
Oh,
So that
that's
tells you they're really rejecting the parties. But so I guess we could start. We've been sort of kind of going through the pledge more. We don't have to stick to that exactly, but if you want to just talk about some of the stuff, when I contacted you, I know you were like pretty much immediately you looked at the pledge and it was stuff that you agree with. And is there anything on there that was a little bit of a challenge, or I don't know which topics are probably
um,
most
I
important?
don't have it up in front of me. If you want to
Okay, yeah, I
give
can
me
pull
the
it up.
point, yeah, I'll talk to it.
Okay, yeah, I can pull it up here.
Great, thank you.
Let's see. Yep. Okay. Looks like have two. Here we go. Okay. So top of the list is no more war. And you know what? Actually, since we're just kind of speaking off the cuff here, this is a less formal broadcast. I will tell you, Michael. I don't know if you caught this, but we have a candidate. Of course, we're not responsible for everything every candidate says, but we have a candidate that kind of put her foot in her mouth a bit about what she had to say about the No More War and veterans. And since both you and Steve, if he comes, are veterans, I thought it would be a good opportunity to sort of, I guess, clarify where we stand. And when we talk to people, is that we're not like against the troops,
Yeah.
obviously, but like we had a candidate come on who talked about being very against recruiting in high schools and that we don't want to just send people to die, but that we do need a strong defense, obviously. But I just wanted to make that clear because this person Michael, you haven't seen it, I take it. She made libs of TikTok fame. We'll put it that way. I think she kind of put her foot in her mouth. But
What?
anyway,
Oh, really?
yes, it was kind of just taking the how Greg Stoker, he's a Green Party candidate and a veteran. Was a combat veteran, I think, like front lines. He's a Green Party candidate in Texas, and he said there's a poverty draft. And I think there is some truth to that. I myself have not been in the military, but I'm with someone who was. And, went into it to get the GI Bill for school. And it is true that I think, people are struggling, and that becomes more of an option when there aren't great jobs out there. But it was just worded in a not great way, and it was a very negative backlash. So I just wanted us to be clear that, I have no ill feelings towards troops, and I certainly don't blame them for the wars that our government takes us to.
Yeah, so that might be a common misconception amongst civilians. But in the veteran world, the No More Wars is something that a lot of people advocate for. A lot of people are, in the No More War sort of movement or mindset. So, yeah, to anybody wondering, so as a veteran, I was a military intelligence analyst for the Air Force for 8 years. I'm married to a combat MOS Army man who's been deployed 3 times. And my dad was also in the military for 20 years, deployed multiple times. So we know about this. We know what it takes. I've lost friends, all those things. But being anti-war is absolutely not being against the troops. We love the troops. We support the troops. And being somebody who grew up mostly overseas, I understand firsthand the importance of having a presence in other countries to stabilize those areas. So those are all something that I'm very pro. I'm pro having a stance in other countries if we need to, but that's very, very different than going in and funding wars and kill civilians and things like that. These are not the wars of the revolutionary days where it was one fighting force on the field against another fighting force. It's a lot different now, and it's very political. And yeah, I don't think it's radical at this point in time to say that nobody wants any more wars. Nobody wants to send their kids to die off in a war, and nobody wants to be the one who's called up, even though plenty of people love serving.
Absolutely not.
I think it just really highlighted again what we were talking about before we went live, is this real split, I think, amongst Trump's base. The people that are still supporting him and are supporting the war in Iran, that was kind of who the backlash came from. But yeah, we have one of our co-hosts who might show up eventually, Matt Ho. We did Candidates for Assange, and Matt is a veteran, and he was one of my co-hosts. And he has talked about, I think he was in the Marines for a decade or maybe more, and then in the State Department. But he wrote a Substack article, I think one Veterans Day, about how hard it was for him when someone said, "Thank you for your service," because he, dealt with a lot of things. So, everyone, it's not a monolith, obviously. Veterans are not all the same. But yeah, I just wanted to be clear that when we say anti-war, we just don't want, needless wars. But we're definitely not anti-troops, members of the military. So, okay, well, we could go, let's see, we could do the second one, which would be, let's see. So freedom of speech, and these kind of tie together, but and the surveillance state and the government transparency kind of go together. But yeah, freedom of speech. I honestly don't know how anyone can be against that, but what is your take on that?
Yeah, so the freedom of speech thing is really interesting right now, because I know that the right has been very, very vocal for a very long time about being pro-Constitution, pro-free speech, pro all of this. And now it's that same side that we're seeing, well, we're not free speech when it comes to these people or these things. And, I think that's the whole point with rights in America in general. If you want the rights for yourself, but you don't want other people to have them, then you're on the wrong side. So I think that's as easy as it gets. And so, I know that, what was it? Colbert's last episode was this week or today or something like that, and that's a direct reflection of government interference in free speech, and it's really sad to see.
I think we've had really, during the Biden years, it was the Twitter files, and I think conservatives were right to be upset about all the censorship that was happening, like on some platforms like Twitter before Musk bought it. But then it's like, then when it's their turn, they're doing the same thing. So yeah, it is very much a double standard on both sides, I think. So yeah, we have to remember rights are rights, no matter who's in power, right? Okay, so then this one, maybe as a veteran, or I wonder if you struggle with these at all, like especially the transparency issue, because I think a lot of ex-military people will say, well, there are some things that people just shouldn't know, but I wonder how you feel about that.
So I actually agree to a certain extent. So being an intelligence analyst in the Air Force, I worked with the NSA. I worked in the building. So I know firsthand that there are things that probably shouldn't be disseminated to every American citizen, and for their own protection. So it's hard to really say like, oh, I'm hard one way or hard the other way. However, I think there's a big difference between state secrets that protect our democracy and, redacting information that, I don't know, it's hard, that like really only serves to protect a few people in power. So.
Right, right. I think it's when national security is kind of used and the public has this sense that like it's more about keeping us in the dark. I think that's when we don't respect that as a reason, right? I don't know, Michael, you want to jump in on that?
Yeah. Yeah. The security state is kind of out of control. I feel you about that as far as operational security. We have to have a force that can defend us. But boy, oh boy, we need a complete audit and like gutting of the house. I think CIA, FBI, NSA, complete audit. But who knows what skeletons we would pull out if we did that.
Well, on the more thorough version of the pledge on the website, I have listed there, and there's a link to an article that William Binney wrote, and he was the former director of the NSA, and he really promotes and suggests that we have like just an independent organization that would kind of oversee that, because one of the things he told me in an interview is that most of Congress is not very aware of the technology. And so when someone from one of the intelligence agencies comes to Congress and says whatever, they're just like, oh yeah, okay. And he says they then have plausible deniability that they didn't violate the Fourth Amendment because they didn't know, they didn't understand the technology. And I think this is a real problem. And someone who's, I think, unfortunately, might have lost his primary tonight, Thomas Massey, someone we bring up a lot because he does talk about the technology.
What's the early polling on that?
I haven't looked recently. I'll pull it up in a minute. We can look at it. But, he seems to be one of few that really, he's talked openly about the FISA Section 702 for a long time. And he's sort of called attention to those things in the surveillance state that most just don't either talk about or don't understand. So I think William Binney is very right that we need some kind of group for, not everybody in Congress is going to be a tech person, but they need to have some resources to go to, because I guess you've heard me say this a few times, Michael, but there was some viral video where it's got members of Congress and they're like, oh, I asked my 10-year-old granddaughter how to use my phone. And I just think we need to get past that.
Yeah. I know, these dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Term limits will help that.
True. Okay, so you're for that too, I assume.
Definitely pro term limits. I think we need rotating. It's the people's house. I definitely think that we should have a larger rotating governing body. I think more everyday people should have a path to sit in that room, to have a seat at the table, and to actually impact laws that impact their own lives. Only 2% of the Congress comes from working class backgrounds, and so they're making decisions for people whose don't have shared life experience. They don't understand, you know what I mean, what it really means to fight for earned benefits, to live off those benefits, to to struggle paycheck to paycheck, or they do in an abstract term like, oh, my mom worked 2 jobs. Like, okay, but you're not really taking that to the table when you consider raising the minimum wage, are you? Like,
Mm-hmm.
had
Mm-hmm.
to work those 2 jobs had the wages been more fair.
Right,
Mhm.
right. There was an article in a magazine years ago. I think it was like the New Yorker or something, and I tried to find it and never could find it again. But it talked about, I don't know exactly when that changed, maybe the 40s, but that it used to be you had farmers and you had just regular people getting elected more, and now it's this other class, and they get entrenched, and that's really the problem because they're not representing us. But okay, let's see. I guess we'll have to reschedule with Steve. I'm not sure. Maybe we had a issue with the time zone, but that's okay.
Mhm. That's all
Um,
right.
he is a comic I saw, so I was hoping for a little bit of comedy hour here, but
I'm
um,
back.
okay. Oh, whoops! I got to find my other ones. Hold on one second. Um, ah,
I do think transparency, your last bullet was
mhm.
transparency in the
Yeah.
government. I think that transparency amongst our elected officials is much different than transparency on the like intelligence aspect. I think that's a
Hmm.
different separate subject. And I do think more transparency via our elected officials is absolutely necessary with things like banning stock trading that they're trying to get
Hmm.
pushed through. I know there was something just recently about enrichment of those type in those
Hmm.
type like how are they getting their money? How can they come into office, with a salary of 174,000, I believe it is, and come out a
Hmm.
millionaire 4 years later?
Right.
So no, the Americans smell something fishy there, and they're right on the money with that.
Well, there's also, though, so I mentioned before we went live too, I do some election security, integrity, activism work. And I've poured over, there's this organization called EPIC in DC, and they really wanted some more information about the 2016 election and what the evidence was of the interference. And you look through all these documents, all these legal documents, and it's just one FOIA loophole after another that they dodge giving this to the public. And I don't, there are so many instances like that where I don't think that's any kind of like national security threat, especially 10 years later to be able to share what it was. And I actually sent my own FOIA request to DHS about the scanning of the 21 states. And I just get this fully blacked out thing back. And I don't, that it's that kind of thing. And I think, yeah, so some of that, especially around our elections, I think we definitely need more transparency because without it, you have, it's on both sides, depends on who wins. You've got people not trusting the elections. So,
I fully
Mhm.
agree with you. For the last couple cycles, I've been a poll worker for the elections. I signed up for
oh,
the PhD, so I've gotten to see people in those instances and talking to the community in my area. And a lot of them are really worried about election integrity. A lot of them are really worried about how do I know that when we scan the ballot in that that's actually counting, and how do we know that that it's not being stolen or disposed of, and
mm-hmm.
so working the poll was is very interesting. It's like half showing people how to do their okay, you go here, okay, you go here, and half calming people, convincing people that their vote matters, convincing people that nobody's trying to steal their vote, but without transparency around those issues, people are going to continue to be skeptical.
Right, right. It just feeds the conspiracy theories.
Mhm.
Okay, let's see. So I've got my other half of my graphic here. Okay, so demilitarize the police, and this is not defund the police, but demilitarize. What do you?
Yes. So in my area, so I'm for the disbanding of ICE wholeheartedly. But in my area, we don't really have a lot of ICE presence. What they've done is deputize the police in order to make these stops. So, but I think it's bad all around. I mean, it's bad for the police to have to target people in their own community, to stop people based on skin color, and to try to figure out, where are your papers? Like, we're in Nazi Germany. It's absolute insanity that's happening there. And I'm lucky in this area. People are lucky in this area that it's not as big as it is in larger cities, but we still get affected by it all the time. Earlier in last year, we had raids on construction crews and things like that. It was always working people, working crews, cartel members that you hear about, local business owners, people with families, people with ties to the community are being taken away and things like that. And it's really sad to see. But yeah, in our area, it's created a burden on the police because they are now deputized to do these stops. And it's really.
Yeah, I think it's crazy that the police state's been ushered in by the Republican Party, whose base is the most anti-government, anti-police state.
They used to be. I don't know.
The Republican Party has ushered in the war on terror, the forever wars,
the party of don't
crazy ICE infrastructure, the surveillance state. I think I saw the other day Trump just bought stock in Palantir. Like, literally, like it's beyond. It's beyond.
I had to look this up, but it's the 1033 program. That's what I have here on the website, and that was where we've all heard about this, and I think we talked about this last week, Michael, where you witnessed when NATO was in town, all the tanks that were out, but I think when we have all this military spending, and then it's like all this equipment has nowhere to go, right? So it's going to come back here to be used on American citizens. So anyway, this 1033 program, let's see, I haven't looked at it really recently, but I know that their goal is to, not have we don't need tanks, right? Just to come to a protest. So just tone it down a little bit, maybe. Okay, so let's see. When we talked about election security, I guess I'll ask you, do you, you said in your district it's more independents and then Republican and then Democrat?
No, it's Republicans first, then third party independents, and then Democrats.
So did you pick up on when you were a poll worker, do you feel like it was partisan in the people that were not trusting things, or was it just all around?
I did find that it was more partisan. I will say there were people on every side that were concerned, but by and large, the most amount of questions that I got came from Republicans who were more worried, and I think that goes directly to the news cycle that they're consuming, telling them that this can't be trusted. It's absolutely can't be trusted. And so when you listen to that enough times and you think that somebody's stealing your vote because there's widespread election fraud or mass, immigrants voting or something like that, you feel like you have to worry about it. When the studies have shown that that's not, as far as illegals voting anyways, that's not the case. That's not happened. So. Right.
Well, there was actually quite a bit of conspiracy pushed on the Democrat side after 2024, but it wasn't as, I think, widespread. But it's a good chunk of people that believe that Trump and Musk hacked the election somehow with Starlink. So yeah, but now I think the concern more on the Democrat side is that ICE is going to interfere in some way with people getting to the polls, and that's probably illegitimate.
Well, there's already so much poll interference as it is with gerrymandering in multiple states. I think it's just happened in Florida. It's happening in maybe Georgia. I think I just read about it happening. I know there's multiple states that it's happening. I'm so hyper-focused on Florida that I don't always remember every other state. But yeah, I mean, it's happening all over, and people need to remember that if their vote was not important, then they wouldn't be working so hard to try to take it away from you.
Right. And what we don't want, here, I'm going to show this is one of my favorite cartoons.
Yeah, in I believe this last presidential cycle, it could have been the one beforehand, but I looked at the numbers, and all the people who had not voted, who were registered voters, could have decided a completely third option if they wanted to, because there were so many people who not voted that it outweighed any one percentage of either side. So yeah, it's hard when we have the electoral college to really feel like your vote matters, because the one person, one vote isn't the case at the presidential level. You know what I mean? So I think that disbanding the electoral college is the only thing that makes any sense. But I know that's a very, very hard, long, tough road to fight for. But as a group, it does matter when you vote, for sure, especially smaller, you know, smaller elections in the president. It matters even more and more. In our state, we had a mayor down in, I think, Miami, who just won his race by like 3 votes, I want to say.
Wow.
And he's now the first Democratic mayor in that area in like decades or ever. Like it's crazy. And so it's like it's real proof that votes do matter, for sure.
So, I have all these things on the pledge that I researched thoroughly, and they're things that are majority of people care about. But one of the things I left off, which really is probably the number one thing all Americans are worried about, is the economy. And kind of the reason I left it off is we are trying to really work to have an alliance with independents and Greens and libertarians. And you can imagine if we start getting into the whole capitalism versus socialism argument, we won't get anywhere. But I imagine that's probably what you mostly hear. Is that what you're hearing on the ground now? Like everybody's worried about gas prices and it's the economy, stupid, right?
So in my meeting with the public, and I'll tell you a quick anecdote from an event that I went to recently. People usually come up to me with one or two things. They come up to me and say, "How do you feel about this subject?" And they'll give me something and want my yes or no quickly. Or they'll say, "Well, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about your platform," and then just let me speak. Well, in one case, this woman came up to me. She was roughly my age, maybe 30s, maybe 40s, and she was like, "Tell me about your platform." So I said, "Great." So I start where I always start, with the American dream. I believe that the American dream should be made available to all working class Americans for the first time in history. It has never been available to everybody, ever in our nation's history. And I think that should change. One of the ways that I think that should change is to make home ownership more affordable. Now, there's a couple ways we can do that. Capping corporations' buying power for single-family homes, and there are multiple states that have already put that measure forward and have passed. But we can do that at the national level. But also capping interest rates on housing. If I wanted to buy my house now for the price that I bought it almost 10 years ago, I still couldn't afford it because interest rates have tripled. I wouldn't be able to afford this exact house with this exact price. And I think that's criminal. And so I was talking to this woman, and I got to the interest rates, and she put her hand up and was like, "No, I'm not about interfering with the free market." And she walked away from me. And I thought it was really interesting because, quite frankly, the government controls every aspect of business. It controls every aspect of the market. It's controlling the tariff rates, which affect the cost of goods. It's controlling whether we're in war or not, for how much gas prices are. It's controlling what taxes are.
It's everything.
So to think that making a change that will, by and large, help all American citizens is interfering in the free market, but letting things happen that are negatively affecting American citizens, because that's not affecting the free market.
All the government does is interfere at the free market.
Yeah,
it's just steps removed, I think. So people
all they do, their laws, their regulations, their influence. Like, don't even get me started about government.
And capping rates and things like that, capping rates on interest loans, on credit cards, on student loans, on housing. That's such an easy way to put money back in the pockets of American citizens and take it out of, it's not coming from taxes, it's not going to the American government, it's going to corporations, billionaire corporations. So, it seems like a no-brainer to me, thinking of like how these small things can be solved so easily. There's much larger issues that will take a lot of heads and a lot of thinking and a lot of, like, healthcare, for example. There's not a quick fix for that, but there are quick fixes for little things to make Americans' lives better. And I think that concentrating on those is something that Congress should be doing, for sure.
Well, the economic issue, again, why I didn't put that on here is I knew it would be an argument, but we can't even start to have a rational argument about, capitalism versus socialism or whatever, when what we have now is not even free market capitalism. And I remember it was years and years ago, it was an article in Vanity Fair, Hitchens, Christopher Hitchens, and it was, free America, the Banana Republic, and it's free market or corporate welfare, and free market for the rest of us.
Yeah,
So that's
rugged
the
individualism
reality.
for us.
Yeah, that's the reality. So we're not even, you can't even have to start to have that argument if you don't say what we actually have, which most libertarians will tell you is crony capitalism. So, but yeah.
So I don't think the average American citizen really understands the concept of corporate welfare to the effect that it's affecting the United States. So if it's something like Walmart is like the largest contributor of corporate welfare, meaning that their employees are disproportionately on these services, even people who are working full time.
Right.
And if we made it very uncomfortable for Walmart to continue those practices, then we could easily cut down on services that the government is funding. So everybody likes to make these big things about like, oh, welfare, oh, SNAP benefits, oh, this and this. But there are reasons for that. And the reasons are the corporations are not paying their people. We can raise the minimum wage. We can, find these companies, make it to the point where they, incentivize them to pay benefits and it save all the services that people want to, not say that their tax dollars are going to.
It's just, again, it's a double standard, right? Because if you say, oh, well, what about spending on all of this or bailing out the banks? That doesn't matter. It's just, I don't know. It's hard to understand that thinking. Yeah. But okay, let's see. We'll go to this one. I guess is a little bit difficult for me to sort of. We had one really good discussion about the legal system. We had a former judge on. But essentially what this, I read that, the confidence in the judicial system is at a record low and people don't have access to courts. And so I think we need more, services for people, there's such a barrier there, like, to afford a lawyer or to figure out how to navigate the legal system yourself if you are doing it yourself. And Karen Ortiz, she mentioned, Michael, I can't remember if you were on for that. Oh, you've been on for every single one. What am I saying? And she had started a website, just had the idea. It hasn't been built out yet, but she is calling it Pro Say, I think SAY, and she wants it to be a resource for people to be able to do that. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. And when things like mandatory minimums are disproportionately affecting minority groups across the United States, and we have privatized prisons that are incentivized to keeping people in the system, not helping rehabilitation efforts, all those things play into the system that is not fair for most Americans.
Right. When you can just buy your way out of stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are people sitting in jail or prison, just waiting for their day in court, waiting to prove themselves innocent or just to get their voice heard for years at a time, because they can't afford even as like $1,000 bail.
Right. That's just not justice at all.
Absolutely, it's an attack on the economic system for sure.
Right. And then, so for the environmental hazards, I really zeroed in on, so I think when you talk to, you talk to a libertarian or you talk to a green about, they won't agree, but if you bring it into like what is in your direct community, it becomes a less polarized issue. And I noticed this back in 2018 when I was interviewing candidates. I remember there were two specifically from Louisiana, and it was an area they both referred to as Cancer Alley. And I don't remember exactly where it was, but they talked about how in their community there were all these cases of cancer. And then as I went on, it was like almost every candidate I spoke to had a story, whether it was a toxic waste dump or whatever, in their community. So I wonder if you are aware of anything like that in your district that is a concern for residents.
Luckily in my district, there's I've said this before, there's like two issues that unite the entire community of where I live. Is one, our love for the space, system, NASA and all that, and two, the love for our wildlife. Our endangered like large sea turtles here and our manatees here are beloved across the board. And so protecting those is something that pretty much everybody in my district cares about. Keeping our waterways clean is something that reaches across the aisle and everybody cares about. So I'm lucky in that way that everybody wants that in my area, and keeping the clean, keeping chemicals out and
Right.
helping the animals and things like that. So
yeah. Okay, and let's see. And then healthcare, which we sort of touched on, that was one, I put it at the bottom, not that it is in any way the least important, but I knew as well that that was going to be something that, Greens and Libertarians especially don't agree on, but everyone agrees it's broken. Yes. And I have heard numerous Libertarians say they would rather see some kind of, single payer or Medicare for all system than keep spending on bombs. So that's a start, I think.
Absolutely. I think that everybody can agree that the healthcare system is broken. I think the one easy way to start on that is by capping prescription costs, working with those those companies and getting all those costs down, getting the out-of-pocket everyday amount that people are paying down, and then working towards an entirely better system. So yeah, everybody agrees it's broken, and nobody yet has come up with a great idea. And I think there's a lot of fear mongering around that too. We're the only advanced in the world without, socialized healthcare. And I think that there's a lot of like, oh, well, that wouldn't work here for these reasons. But the truth is that we've never tried, and we've tried the other ways, and that's not working. So,
right. Well, you always hear the argument that you'd have to wait a long time. Some of my family's Canadian, and yes, you wait, but it's not any more than you would wait to get into a specialist here.
Right.
So I don't get that argument at all.
Yeah, and for the VA, when they're closing programs for the VA and they're closing hospitals for the VA because they're cutting so many people, our wait times are already going through the roof, and that can affect the longevity of people's lives, waiting for surgeries, waiting for things like that. So that's a real concern. But again, that's not a proven thing that will happen. That's just a hypothetical that might happen. And it's hard to really say if the system is going to work unless we actually try it.
So, well, it's too bad Steve didn't make it, but I know you both are part of the Independent Candidate Network, and we've talked to a lot of, as a matter of fact, I probably need to be reaching out to some more Libertarians and Greens, because I've been going through all the lists on the Independent Candidate Network. But I was so excited to see that, because you guys seem to really have a cohesive message and a plan, and you do have fundraising. Do you want to talk a little bit about that network and just how that you're incorporating stuff from that into your campaign?
So the Independent Candidate Network is something that was just founded this year by Lauren Collin and Paul Burton, and they're both running for Congress themselves. Eventually, they plan on expanding the Independent Candidate Network to include other levels of government. But this year, since its inception, the goal is to target the Congress specifically. So right now in Congress, we have no third-party independents at all. That's not always been the case. We have in the past. I will say, though, there has never been a female elected independent in Congress. So I'm not the only one who's trying to go for that title, but if elected, I would be the first, so that's pretty fun. But, yeah, so our goal is to work towards that, and there's a wide range of belief systems and political ideologies in the ICN, ranging from what I would call more right to center to more left, but we're all working together to sort of change this two-party system to show that there can be a different way than just what's the lesser of two evils that we're dealing with now, which we hear of so much when people are voting. So yeah, we're working really hard towards that, and we're elevating each other across platforms and trying to do group fundraising. So if you want to donate to the ICN specifically, that money will get funded to each candidate.
Okay, great.
So you'll actually be contributing to all the candidates across. So there's something like 20 of us now, but we're hoping to get those numbers closer to 50. So
right, I think it's just so much more effective. We've seen various other parties try to start up, and I think kind of within every party there becomes, you've got hierarchy of power and people don't all agree on everything. But when you're a network, a more loose network like what you guys are doing, I think it is proving to be already more effective, I think.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, you've got some great candidates, and I mean, I'll be rooting for you too, and Karen Ortiz and Nadia Milan, who really, I think she got 38% the last time. I'm really hoping she might be.
Yeah, Nadia's really great, and Karen's working really hard out in New York. Yeah, we love everybody who's really working so hard, and it's great because we even have some people who are in the network who've already been disqualified for their race for whatever reason, mostly because of challenges to their petitions. Yeah. And so they're still in, they're still helping, they're still going to every meeting. They're still like, how can we elevate this? Because we recognize we don't need all of us to win.
Oh, that's great.
We just need some of us to win.
Yeah. And then working together too on the stuff about the ballot signatures or whatever. If people start to get together on that so you don't feel like you're just completely alone, I think that's perfect. Right. Yeah. So, Michael, you're going to run. I don't know if you got to this before we went on live, but did you mention you are going to run again in 2028?
Yep, in 2028. Yep, I'm getting involved with some local stuff here. I think here in Dayton, Ohio, possibly. There's a few initiatives going on, and then eyeballing 2028. More than likely as an independent. I don't know if I want to go tear things up in the Democratic Party, and I'm leaving that door open. But it just is I don't know, but I'm, I ran as an independent last time. I'll more than likely go that same route again. I just believe, and it's very nice being in the race the entire time too, rather than getting disqualified in a primary. And, it's just, yeah. So anyway, I really like the fact that the Independent Candidate Network is around this time. They weren't in 2024. So, keep building that solid infrastructure, and you're really paying it forward for everybody else that just has a wild idea that wants to get in there, because that's what it's going to take. And I think after a while, people are going to start to come around and be like, all right, I'm not voting for these Democrats and Republicans anymore. I want to vote for just a blue collar or just a grassroots candidate. And that's what it is.
But if they see a real network of serious people, like the more than they have, the better. The more other people are going to take that seriously, right?
Mm-hmm. So and we have a wide variety of jobs and positions, and like with Karen Ortiz, we have a former judge in our network. We have multiple veterans in our network. We have one who's a long haul truck driver. Like, we have a wide variety of people who just want to affect change in their neighborhood and in the country that that is not benefiting them.
Right, and I think from what I've seen, you're all respecting that you're in different parts of the country, and your constituents need different things or want different things, and I think that's part of the problem with some of the other. I don't know. I'll just give the Green Party a hard time for a minute, but it's like you can't expect everyone across the country to always be on the same page on every single issue. So I think it's a really good, mature, and constructive way to get things done. I thought, if you guys don't mind, I'm just going to pull this up really quickly. And the point really is not so much to focus on this primary in particular, although I think it is a big deal, because though Massey is a Republican, technically, I believe he said he's a libertarian. But the thing that really struck me the most, and I think this is something going forward, like the Independent Candidate Network and any independent candidate is really going to have to figure out how to reach the non-voters. Because when you look at this, I mean, what was the number I said right before we went live? I think it was almost 1,800,000 residents. Of course, they're not all voting age, but when you look at the turnout here, though, I mean, it's abysmal. Even with all of the media attention and everything that there was here, let's see. I mean, we have, I guess it's 95% in now. I guess they're probably calling it. But still, you don't, this is nowhere near, what's the total?
What's the total?
Total number of voters, it looks like, you know, it's 100,000, a little over 100, 110 maybe. Yeah, out of like 700, and I mean, what do we do to get the apathy is the problem, I think, and people. I think that needs some real studying and strategies of really how to reach those people that have just given up, or maybe don't, or younger people that just don't ever even.
Yeah, and that's the two-party system. The one aspect that the two-party system is working towards really hard. I know the Democrats in my area have a very large push for getting voter registration and things like that, but they're not really concentrated on third parties, and it's a disservice because, like I said, we have more third party in this area than we do anybody else. So not inviting the third party to the table is a disservice to democracy, in my opinion. And as ICN grows, hopefully we will create that infrastructure to where they can help out on a more broad scale about, you know, getting voter registration, getting, you know, awakening the people and putting a fire in their minds and hearts and feet to get to the polls.
Right. I think the studies, when you ask them why they don't vote, they all give very similar answers. They think it won't matter, it won't make a difference, and none of the people represent them. They're not speaking to their issues. So
yeah, and then I also hear some people say for a fourth option, I don't like to get into politics. I don't like to get into politics. I don't do it, which I you know, is really hard to listen to because I'm like, politics controls every aspect of your life.
Yes.
Every single aspect of your life. And if you're not throwing your hand up for the way it should be, then you're okay for it getting worse.
Yeah, that's very true. I think that's why we got to where we are now. I think maybe things were good for a lot of the country, you know, 50 years ago, and people stopped being involved doing like what you guys do. And I know, Michael, you're already starting to work on stuff in your local area, but when you take your hands off the wheel when the whole country's like decades of not paying attention, that's just a luxury I don't think we have, because the corruption will set in, unfortunately. So
yeah, it's affecting every single one of us at all levels. You know, I most hear it from white men, honestly, across the political spectrum.
That they're not interested?
Yeah, because the system is most set up to benefit them. And historically, that's been the case. And so, of everybody that I hear that from, like, I don't do politics, that's the demographic that I hear it the most from. The people that don't think their vote will matter, that goes across races and spectrums.
Right. Well, you know, the way things are now, they're not going to get any easier. So, like, economically, and so you're not going to have that luxury, the next generations, to just be like, I'm not interested, I think, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm disappointed that Steve couldn't come too, but it was really great to meet you, and you
nice to meet you.
Held your own for a whole hour all by yourself. So,
thank you guys so much for having me. And if I can say, if anybody would like to help me confirm my spot on the ballot, feel free to go to my website. It's vote and then my name, Villareal. .com, and my donation link is all over the place, or you can go to any of my social media, Villareal 4 Congress, and yeah, you can help anyway.
Do you want to repeat that, because I don't remember if we were live yet when we were talking about how many signatures? Were we already live?
And I'm not sure. So we needed about 2,600 signatures. We didn't meet that quota, so in order to stay on the ballot, I'm required to pay $10,440 in order to just stay in the race, or else they'll kick me out. So we're luckier than some. Some states don't even have a filing fee, so if they don't get the signatures, they're done. So we're lucky in that regard, but 10,000 is a lot of money for somebody without party backing, party leaders, party infrastructure. So yeah, every little bit helps, and all my donations are community grassroots funded. So I appreciate every single person who wants to contribute, and we're not talking big contributions. You don't have to give hundreds of dollars. If you have an extra $5 or $10, like those help. Those very much help.
And I think it's good for people to know exactly where it's going. I think a lot of people got burned. They felt the burn in 2016 or later or whatever. And so when they know exactly what it's going for, I think that's a good thing. So a lot of people may not realize that you have to pay if you don't get signatures, or that you can't even do that in every state. But yes, so please, if you have the funds, donate to Lacey's campaign, and just thank you so much for joining us. And maybe we'll bring Steve on again, or try to get him on again. And he's a comedian. We'll have comedy hour.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Michael, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Lacey. Good luck in your race.
Yes, great to meet you.